Welcome to this week's episode of Esports Wrap, everyone. I am your host, Michael R. Morgan, and with us this week we have our guest on the show who's been here a few times already, who likes to go inside of our chat, and big up Dwan, and a few of our other co-hosts. It's Nally.
Hey, thanks to be here, Jim.
Now, for those of you wondering, normally I bring Nally in when we talk Hearthstone. This week we're changing things up just a little bit. He's actually going to be talking about one of our a regular topic, and that topic this week is mods and cheating in video games. Essentially, we're going to be talking about how that affects games on a whole. Now, we'll start this off. Nally, have you ever modded or cheated in a video game? Even if it's single player.
It depends. Does it count for mobile?
Yes.
Then yes.
Explain.
Well, being on an iPhone and having recently jailbroken, I've had a lot of access to a lot of non-accessible things that most wouldn't have access to, if that makes any sense. So, to put in perspective, let's just say I'm playing a game and you need some coins. Instead of going through the in-game purchase aspect, I can just take my 20 coins and make it, say, 400 coins.
Understood.
That way I can enjoy the game a little better without having to grind out hours and hours of it. But in my defense, and I guess it's not really fair, I don't really see mobile games as that serious. So, sorry to all those that may. I know there's a lot of people that enjoy their mobile games and they do take their mobile games serious, but it's mobile.
Me personally, yeah, I've done it. Generally, I think only in single player games. I have probably modded more than I've cheated. Now you're probably, for those watching, you may be wondering or listening in via the podcast, you might be wondering what's the actual between modding and cheating. And to me, at least, modding is when you are pretty much just enhancing something that's already there. Not necessarily that you're going and making things, you're giving yourself extra coins, you're making your character OP or overpowered, or things like that. It's like saying, okay, well, I want to change the way that this flower looks. I want to add a pack inside here that allows me to. I'll use Minecraft as a great example there because there are a ton of mods for Minecraft. And granted, Minecraft is not a game that I actively play. I just know a lot about the community and what they do. For some reason, they quite literally will create packs. And the base game just has you with the stereotypical like armor, pickaxe, sword, shield, and you craft stuff. People have made it to where in the game now you can quite literally build an airplane and go flying in the sky. And like all these extra things that aren't in the actual game, but are mods. And they're not cheating. They're just mods. They're additions to the game that enhance the gameplay without breaking the game in a sense.
Or making it unfair for other players.
Exactly.
I remember my first interaction with, first time seeing mods was Smosh Games. And they did it all the time. They had like the pirate ship, and I think that one was the coolest in Minecraft. And they couldn't figure out how to steer it, but then they had to craft the steering wheel a specific way. Once they got the steering wheel working, then they would just ride the ship from island to location, and then they encountered other players with pirate ships, so they ended up getting raided. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And I sat there and I said to myself, "This is what." The freedom to mod is, that's how you enhance the gameplay and you get other. I guess I started to play it, and I went and hopped in on a server that had the pirate ships, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. You were able to build your beds, put them on the ship, fall asleep, wake up on the ship. So if ever you died anywhere else, you would still end up back on your ship, not having to worry. So that's a good thing.
That's actually
in some cases.
That's actually no, that legit is actually pretty cool.
Exactly. So in those situations, modding is okay. I don't know if you've seen Grand Theft Auto mods, which are is the other game that has awesome mods. Off of
Elaborate, please.
servers, off of servers. There was the Thanos mod. I was watching someone do a Thanos mod. It was legit. He had full gauntlet control. If he did the snap, half of the players in the half of the AIs in the game would turn to dust. And he could create black holes. He could drop meteors of different sizes. It was legit, and he was essentially invincible. But it was only a single player mode, and it was hella fun to watch. And I was like, you know what? That would definitely make me go play some GTA if I didn't play GTA much. So like things like that do enhance the gameplay. For you, you could just go and have fun. They had the Hulk mod, the Flash mod, like taking a character and being a superhero outside of a superhero game when you have an open world is pretty good.
But then that still raises the question. So if I'm in a single player world, what does cheating really affect anything? Like, let's say God of War, and I just make, you know, myself all powerful in it. How does that really affect things? What's your take on that?
Well, I think the only way it affects is if your single player score goes to a global rank. Like I know there's a points system in a lot of games where your rank, however best you beat the game, goes toward a global rank. I remember Ninja Gaiden 3 had that system where however how fast you beat the game and how many points you accumulated while beating the game went toward a global rank. I think I placed like top 4 300 because it was ridiculous. But in that sense, then modding is obviously cheating because you're doing it to improve your global rank. But when the global rank doesn't count, then I in my opinion, no one should have a problem with it. If I decide I on my computer by myself want to break my own game that I paid for, then who are you to tell me, oh, stop doing that? No.
Okay, fair enough. And I actually agree with that. Because essentially what it is happening is that you're taking the game that you are playing and playing it how you want to play it. Now, if that means that you're not actually playing it the way it's intended to play, and you're probably ruining some of the experiences for you, like some of the more difficult fights that are actually meant to, like at the end of it, feel like you've actually done something worthwhile. Then I mean that's up to you. But again, like I would say, in my opinion, try to beat the game fairly, and if you can't, or you have a very hard and difficult time to, then maybe take a look at the cheat.
The mod.
I prefer mod.
Yeah, in that case, it's a mod. Like, it's very different. Most people don't see it as such, but it is very different.
No, when I say that, like, okay, so I'll go back to using a God of War example. Let's say you start off with facing a boss with everything, all the items that you would have collected up to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
You save the game, you plug it in, you boost your character using certain methods. You plug it back in, upload the save data to your PS4, and now your character's got the buff. Like they're all powerful, and then you roll through the boss. That's cheating. That's not really a mod.
Okay. Again, does it affect any other players? That's the difference.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's the difference.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I personally would hold off doing that kind of cheat until I reach to a point where I cannot by myself beat something.
Okay, I could agree. I could agree to that. I'll use again Ninja Gaiden 3 as an example. It was like when it came out, it was classified as one of the most difficult games to beat. Its hardcore mode was exactly that. If you managed to make it 2 to 3 steps without getting your head cut off, you were lucky. Like it required full focus, full attention every second. You couldn't drop your guard for a second. The normal fight scenes that weren't all that difficult became extremely difficult. The fight scenes that required, say, 6 attack combo now turned into 24. So just like it was that level. The extra points that you would get if you decide to go down a corridor, you now stop and think to yourself, is it really worth it? Because I can't save going down that corridor. So you know what? I think I'm gonna leave that corridor alone. I know what's down there, but it ain't worth it. Like, that's the level the game was at. And modding that, I guess for some people would have made it more satisfying, but being able to beat the game in its entirety is fun. But for some people, they can't do it. I played each mode. Each mode, you had to play easy, normal, hard to unlock hardcore. And I think till this day, I still couldn't get past the very final stage, and I just kind of left it on my Xbox 360. But it was good. It was a hell of an experience. I think I put in at least 180 hours just to get through all of it, and I still wasn't able to complete it. But not modding it still made no difference for me.
And then there comes to the points where it's not quite the same thing. Like, you are actually actively going out and playing against other players.
Filthy, dirty, sleazy hacker.
Essentially. Like, there was actually a case that's been making news rounds recently, where someone was at a tournament of all places, and was using an aim assist hack, and he got found out.
I think if that's Rainbow Six, then yeah, I remember. I actually watched the competition when it happened.
That was Optic India's team, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yep.
And I'm kind of becoming more active in the Rainbow Six. There's very difficult to keep track of in the Bahamas because there's very few players. But I have a squad that I roll with. Some of them from Europe, and then some are from the US. So it's usually pretty good. But watching, I don't know how he was able to do it though. Like, they monitor the computers, but for him to be able to go there and plug that aimbot in and run it, and like during the tournament, the Battle Eye, which is the cheat system, was able to detect you and ban you mid-tournament. That is the greatest dishonor you could bring to anybody. Your family, your grandkids, no one's gonna live that down.
They actively disbanded the entire team because of that.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know the guy got banned, and
they said all the other team members were let go to pursue any other interest that they want. Probably to make sure that hey, they're not going to be, they weren't going to get backlash from it.
Gotcha. Because being on the team with a cheater, everybody else is a cheater. Yeah,
exactly.
I can understand that. But I mean, you got some big cojones to try and pull that off in a tournament. Like, it's hilarious, and there's nothing funnier than watching streamers who run hacks, not mods, but hacks, and try to justify it. And it's like, dude, we're watching you wallbang someone. Like, your back is turned and you spin around, and all of a sudden you get a straight headshot. Navi, delete the game, stop. No one thinks you're cool. Everybody unfollow. Take your subscription back. Complain to Twitch. He gets banned. The whole shebang. It ain't worth it. Like, if you want to do that by yourself, then fine. Or do it off stream. No, you know what? Doing it on the whole is terrible.
Exactly.
So I want to say do it off stream. Doing it on the whole is terrible. Like, just to improve some rank is terrible. Like, I've grind my way through Rainbow Six, and it's not easy. You have to understand your angles, your corners, what materials are destructible from what aren't, which you can get take bullets from. My controller is almost beat down, but it's putting in that work. My trigger fire is improved, stuff like that. Like, you could obviously mod that, but then you take away from the real learning experience. So when you hop in a match, or someone say, yo, let's go play a quick match, you don't have your aimbots and you get destroyed. Then you get found out. So it makes you look retarded. It makes you look a terrible player. But when you could hop on, say, PS4 or any other system and be able to pull off the same gameplay, then it proves you're a good player. And that's why I don't really support hacks. Like, if you want to play for you, that's fine. Do for you. Mod your own game for your experience, but don't mod it for everybody else's experience. Because you have persons that are trying to get into the game, and it's like, you know what? Let me hop on and catch a play. You come there with your hacks. You're already terrible, and the game's doing all the work. Now they say, you know what? This probably isn't for me. You're taking a legitimate experience from someone that wants to enjoy a game. So that's the real problem with I mean, sorry to say it for a lot of you PC players. Like, that's the master race is definitely the masters in some cases.
Well, that actually brings up a point that I was actually on another show by another Bahamian, Sunday, I think, and one of the parts came up, that the reason why Sony may have not wanted crossplay is because people hack a lot on PC.
Yep.
And while I gave like a different train of thought as to why Sony probably acted like that, it still rang a bell in my head as, that's actually a fair point. Because, yeah, sure, people can hack on PS4 and stuff like that. But typically, the hacks are mainly client based. They're not going to really affect how well you aim or something like that. Like, there's no real hacks for PS4 and Overwatch.
Or on Xbox. They've cracked down on that a lot. Any unsanctioned scripts or any unsigned, specifically signed files or anything like that, and the system is not going to recognize it. It'll essentially, your account will essentially be banned. Like, the second it touches the internet, it's banned. So if you do, you have to do it offline, then delete it, make sure your system is fully restored, and then go back online. That's too much work. It really is. It's unnecessarily.
So, but then there are mods that are helpful. So, for example, with this one, I won't just go with Minecraft. I'll actually go to World of Warcraft.
Okay.
They have an entire add-on system that you can just like enhance your gameplay. You can quite literally change the UI. You can have warnings for raids, and this is something that was actually pretty big. And as of months ago, one of the biggest developers of a raid add-on called Deadly Boss Mods, things were happening in his life and he wasn't really able to put forth the effort and time into that add-on anymore, which was used by many of the top raiding guilds in the world, and even just by casual players when they go into anything from dungeons to actual raids, stuff like this, because this thing will actually give you heads up. Hey, so there's going to be something toxic happening. Hey, you need to move out of the fire. Hey, the boss is going to do this type of attack. You need to stack up. So it gives you warnings ahead of time, or like if you're screwing up, essentially it tells you, hey, stop screwing up. And he wasn't able to really put forth the effort and time into that anymore because of real life stuff, and most of it was mainly because of money. Like, he wasn't able to really put that effort into it anymore. Eventually it got up onto Reddit, and he's gotten donations like out the wazoo. Blizzard and I think it was MSI sent him a new new top of the line computer and monitor and mouse and keyboard and all this stuff to make sure he's able to get the best data for this add-on that he possibly can. This, like, at the end of the day, I think he came close to, value wise, anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000 worth of stuff.
That's pretty damn good.
But that's just showing how much love there was for these mods. These things that just are enhancements to an actual game that no one even really thought about.
That's true. Similar to the deck tracker for Hearthstone.
Exactly.
A lot of people feel like the deck tracking system is a cheat because it does the work that you're supposed to do yourself. But as Ben Bro put it himself, as long as it doesn't affect the other user's gameplay, then essentially do anything that you can do on a pen and paper, it's not a cheat. Blizzard will never see it as a cheat. Deck Tracker essentially does what you can do with a pen and paper, just makes it easier, especially for newer players. Playing who did I play the other day? I played one of the new guys in the group the other day, and I decided to turn off the deck tracker just to, I don't want to take advantage of knowing exactly what he was playing when he played it. I decided to follow it, and it worked out pretty good. After the match, I forgot to turn it back on. I hopped on that, and I was still able to keep track. So deck tracker essentially just helped me learn what decks run what. Anything new, then I'd know what to anticipate because of what the meta was. So it's a good and a bad thing. You have some that become too dependent on it, can't play without it, and for them, it's going to be more difficult in the long run if they decide to go any further. But like in those instances, I understand what you're saying. Like if deck tracker were to go down today or tomorrow, a lot of people would be lost. If it's not updated for the next expansion, then that's pretty much it. Just call it a day, pack it up, and leave it alone.
Now, there was one add-on. I don't know if I should call it an add-on, but definitely something that enhanced your abilities. And this was on Overwatch. Have you heard of something called Visor?
I've heard of it. It sounds very familiar.
Okay, so the general premise behind Visor was you play your game, it has an overlay over the game, and it gives you tips during the game to say, okay, well, your team is essentially leaving you behind. You need to keep with your team. Oh, your healer's being killed too often. Back up your healer. Your opponents are streaming in one by one. You should maybe try to be a bit more aggressive and take them out. That kind of thing. And then it would give you ideas based on the different characters that you had, and say what suggestions they have for you, what's your win or loss rating, that kind of thing. Just a lot of statistical information that apparently some Overwatch League teams were actually using this before it became really popular. And once it became popular, Blizzard then said, "Hey,
that's elite. That's spannable. It's a cheat.
Yeah,
it's a cheat. Like it's essentially like having a play bot in Hearthstone. Like the game, it anything that tells you what's the best thing to play or what decision to make is a cheat. Like as long as it doesn't tell you, okay, this is the combination you need to make to get lethal. Like the puzzle labs, like you have to know and think about the game mechanics and different things that you need to know to understand how to beat it. If it tells you how to beat it, it's a cheat, essentially.
Yep. And so sorry.
No. I was just saying. So it telling you, okay, this person's dying too much. Back them. No, that's cheating. That's coach. That's background coaching.
Yeah, it's made as a coaching app. Well, yeah, coaching program.
That's a no. Well, in my book, that's a no. If Blizzard says it's a no, then it's definitely a no.
So what they've done now is instead of it doing it live, you stream to it. It records the information, processes it using its AI because it's using AI to do it, and then gives you the information after, so that you can then review it and see where you were messing up.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, it's more like a coach than before. Well, it's more like a let's play through and see how you were messing up.
It's a what do you call it? Post game.
Yes, post game review.
Yeah, that's fine. Which is more acceptable. As long as it's not telling me during the game, so I know, okay, why did we lose? We didn't do this. Okay, I get it. I understand now. So next game I go in, I'll know what to expect. Or if I see these combination of players, I know what they're gonna try and do. That's fine. Anything that's after the fact and doesn't directly contribute to you winning the game by saying, hey, don't go that way, go this way. It's fine. And that's what the gaming community should probably focus more towards, like post-op coaching.
I don't know. Because at the same point, let's actually use esport teams. As they are training, they're playing against other players and something like that. They quite literally do have people behind them saying, "Hey, you see what you did wrong there, right? You need to actually do this, do that, to the next." So it's in a sense like the point why the teams probably felt a little miffed by it is because they actually have people doing this for them already. Now it was just an app, so it actually saved them a little bit of money. They maybe didn't have to go for the coach all the time, that kind of thing. Now it's not quite the same.
Yeah, but from a pro team, most pro teams have a coach, but the coach can only interact with them either during a break or if they completed a round. They can't interact with them during the game. Like they can't watch how everybody else is playing and make suggestions during the game. I think that's a no-no. But if you guys win or lose a match, you'll be like, okay, this is what you guys are doing. This is what I've been noticing they're playing while you're playing. This is a strategy to improve. That's fine. Again, it's not directly changing their strategies mid-game to improve their win rates. It's just giving you a post-evaluation on the situation to improve the game.
See, that's the thing. I don't think that actually happens that way. Because from what I've seen, a lot of coaches will be coaching mid-game. Not during official games now. During training matches, when they're just playing against either their own teams or casuals and stuff like that.
Obviously, that's a different situation. Like, I guess they're trying to get them to think on the fly.
But essentially, so what's the difference between that and something like Visor? That if you're using it in a non-tournament manner.
Again, well, see, that's what makes the difference between mods and cheats. Like, if you're in a training session, then it's understandable. Like, we do it all the time. So we're playing in a match, we'll team up to coach each other between plays to help you better understand what plays not to make. But in a tournament setting, when it's just you're on your own. Like, you'd want to have the voice of your coach in your head telling you that, okay, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. Because, in a training, a casual match doesn't go towards your rank. But a tournament, when you're playing for a cash prize and you're playing for, status or, more points, that's when it counts. Like, if you can have someone directly in your ear or say even in your chat during a tournament telling you, yo, I'm spectating your match, you're doing this wrong, that's a problem, because you now have essentially another set of eyes or a bot telling you, yo, don't do this, don't do that. That's cheating, because the other person does not have the same advantage.
Yep. Now, here's the thing. That still doesn't quite answer why Visor for casual matches bad thing.
Well, I guess it was either or. If you played in casual, then you could obviously play it in ranked, correct?
There you go. Yep, you're right.
So, like, using in one, I guess if they only allowed you to use in one, that would have been fine. But if they can't stop you from using it in both, then it's a problem. So that's I think the difference there. Like, hey, if it's only accessible, like if the developer said we're only going to make it accessible as a training tool in casual, then people want to get sweaty in casual, that's fine. Everybody will have access to it. The second you get in the rank system, then it's no longer there, or it's a dumbed down version. It only gives you, say, 1% of information that would, I guess, I don't know. I've never seen it in action, but anything that's not directly contributing to a win, then, but if that wasn't the case, then it's like, what, cease and desist. Or we'll slap you with the big lawsuit.
Which they're known to do.
Oh, yeah. So I saw someone on Reddit post, they did something and Blizzard hit them with a cease and desist. Ooh. And he was hurt because he was doing it to promote Blizzard. I can't remember what it was. I gotta find it. It's hilarious. And he was like, long-term Blizzard. He's the Hearthstone from beta, and Blizzard hits him with a cease and desist. He's like, it's like your girlfriend breaking up with you, and you don't even know why. You took her out to dinner, and she's like, "This isn't gonna work." He's like, "What? What did I do?"
You wanted the stop.
Exactly. She obviously saw something different, and I was like, "Well." I guess that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. But I mean, quite honestly, like, at the end of the day, some of these cheats, like you mentioned, aren't worth it. From either the time being placed into it. So, for example, back when I used to mod my single player mobile games or even PC games, I'd have to use particular cheat engines and stuff like that, and have to go and look for hex codes, try to unencrypt them, but then try to find the one or two things that actually change. And sometimes it's like 10 things that are changing at the same time, and so you have to slowly narrow it. And then sometimes there's still 3 things left that are always changing, and you're still not sure which one of those you should actually change.
Yep.
So that takes a whole lot of time just for you to do that. Then there's 2. Sometimes, at the end of it, you can be cheating along and doing and like helping yourself out.
Then you break the game.
Then you break the game, or the game breaks you and says, "Whoop! We noticed what you're doing. You're banned." Or what I noticed what happened to a friend of mine. There was one game on mobile. It was Dungeon Hunters or something like that. Anyway, essentially he gave himself a bunch of coins to then buy like the in-stop things to improve his single player experience. Oh, when Game Loft found out about that, next thing you know, the same amount of coins he had became so I just lagged out my computer. But we're back. Nally's have this wicked little smirk on his face.
Nope, absolutely nothing. PC massive blue screen.
But yeah, so that happened. I was saying something. Do you remember what it was?
You were talking about him not being able to buy back any coins from being banned, essentially.
Right, my friend. Right, so this friend of mine, he was not able to buy back any of these coins. Well, or at least improve himself any, because he now owed the company all the coins that he had cheated from the company, which means that, you're essentially screwed. If you want to play anything, you have to pay them back.
Or just change your ID. If you really want to be clever, you could just delete the game, change your ID, log in with a new one.
But at the same time, that requires actually making a new email account. And everything.
Yep, that's the downside.
So, yeah, that didn't really work for him. He's just stopped playing it. But
makes sense. I'd have given up. I'd have given it up too.
I did laugh at him because I did warn him against it.
Especially if it's a smaller game, where the player base is again a lot smaller. They'd watch that kind of thing.
Yep.
Kind of have to be aware of that.
Yeah, that was an interesting case. So yeah, sometimes it's you break your game, the game breaks you, you break someone else's game, and then they really get pissed off at you. Or just random stupidity like that. So all in all, it's probably best not to get into that kind of scenario, in my opinion.
I agree. I would wholeheartedly agree. Hopefully, I'm pretty sure they're not gonna listen. They may someday, but not now. There's the game called Two Dots for mobile. You familiar with it?
Oh yes.
They have a newer version. They have the older one where you could kind of play for free, but then they have the one that's an adventure.
Yeah, and then you move between the different scenes and stuff like that.
Yes. When I was still in its earlier phase, I was able to do the in-game thing, and I was able to increase my dot exploders, and I did it to like some ridiculous numbers, like in the thousands. I still have them, and they're dwindling now, but that's gone. So the experience has kind of become a little lessened now because I obviously don't have access to the plethora of boosts that I used to. So it's slowly dwindling, and they've now fixed those issues where you were able to do that. So there's that. But again, at the time it was a small game, and they didn't really notice it because you could have paid through Facebook. So in-game purchases weren't really tracked like they were now. So you actually have to be a little more careful. The games that I do or would say I kinda maybe sort of do that don't really need to be mentioned, I guess their fan base is too big that they'll never notice. It's too small of things that happen. One game in particular, I purchased every booster they had, every pack, everything, and it's some like 50 or 60. So it's essentially like $3,000 worth, and I was like, this is ridiculous. There's in-game, and then there's in-game robbery. That's robbery. $3,000 worth just to enjoy the game properly. That's ridiculous.
Actually, yeah, that kind of then goes into another like aspect of it. How much are they trying to milk from you for a game compared to like a traditional like $60 to $99 game, essentially?
I agree. Like, when does microtransactions no longer become micro?
Pretty
That
much.
is the question.
When do they become mandatory?
That's a very good topic for another day. But
Yeah.
I'll say this: in Rainbow Six, they have a lot of microtransactions that
Right.
for costumes and stuff like that, where they should be. Microtransactions. If you want to pay for a new costume, that's fine, but you shouldn't have to pay for new characters. It's unfair. I've already spent $60 in the game. There's no reason why I have to continue to pay every time you release a new character. You can by purchasing the season pass, because they promise to continuously update the game, and they have been doing. They say they're going to update an additional 50 operators, which is a lot. And every season, which is every 3 months, they've been doing that. So essentially like Blizzard. They come up with a new operator, a new map. They cycle out old maps, and then they bring them back later on as the game continues. And you can purchase the operators, or you can go the hard way and you can grind out and save the points. Like, you save up enough for now, and you can purchase an operator for 30,000, which is a lot. So that's essentially, I think, like 5 to 6 hours gameplay to purchase one operator continuously. So in Rainbow Six, that's a lot, because some matches only last 2-3 minutes.
Wait, what?
For some matches, so a round is essentially 3 minutes, and a match can go for 10 minutes. And it's 5 players. Once you die, that's it. You're out.
Okay.
So 5 to 8 hours is a lot. That's multiple matches that usually last anywhere between 5 to 6 minutes. It's not like Call of Duty where you could just keep going and shooting and you could rack up a high KD. No, you're capped. Your win rate is capped. Like, there's only so high your points can go. So you can't abuse the game. You can play, against the computer, but your points will be lower, or you can play in ranked where your points will be doubled. But, playing in ranked also means if you lose, you lose your ranking, and you are cut points. So, they have it pretty balanced. So it works. So, by the time as the season roll around, I usually have enough to purchase 2 operators. So, it's not, I don't really feel it. So I play the game, enjoy the game, play new operators, play new strats with my friends, and new operators come out, we enjoy more content. Those who purchase the season pass get access 1 week earlier, which is fair. They should get to enjoy if they decide to pay, which is fine. So it's not a pay to win, it's just a pay earlier to enjoy.
Yeah, and there are a lot of games that actually have that built in for their if you do a pre-order or anything like that as well. You get 2-3 weeks, sometimes just a week, sometimes a month of early access,
which is understandable. Like, if I decide to pay for it, then I should be given the privilege of more enjoyment for my money.
Exactly.
But when everybody can download the game for free, and the only reason I can beat everybody else is because I paid for all these transactions, it's ridiculous. It's like, you know what? Keep your game, bro. Keep your rich kids who can obviously afford it. I'll go play my modded version offline, where I don't have to worry about that stress and hassle.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But I think that actually kind of wraps us up for today.
Awesome.
What was that just now?
That's what my girlfriend says.
That's cute. That's cute. But yeah, so that wraps us up for today. I'd like to thank my guests for coming on. So thank you, Nally.
Pleasure to be here, Jim.
And for anyone else who's just joining in or who's listening to the podcast or anything like that, don't forget we have Esports Wrap every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on Thursdays, we have our other show, MOAR Tech, at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. If you've missed any part of this episode, feel free to head over to our YouTube page or moarcookies.com. That's MOARcookies.com. YouTube is youtube.com/MOARcookies. And if you prefer audio versions, well, we are on podcasts as well, so feel free to listen to it on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much anything that you would be listening to podcasts on, we are there. So until next time, take care.